exactly.
One of the reasons I'm glad you called here tonight is someone asked me to talk about this, and it's something I can't really talk about on my own because I'll be called sexist, even though I do agree with it. But I want to talk about the subject of female psychopaths.
Right.
The reason
right.
I think I was probably unique, certainly at the time I came out, in saying that they're both there's males and female psychopaths in equal numbers. They're both they're both causing horrific problems for women, particularly, and then firstly, and then men. And it's a fact of life, and we have to deal with it. Unfortunately, we have a lot of these sort of, well, nearly all of them, not all of them, I say, but a lot of them, of these sort of what they call recovery groups, which are run by women who've discovered that, you know, by calling her ex-husband or boyfriend a psychopath, she has a get-out-of-jail card and an instant victim complex. And I've come to actually think, you know, it's the whole thing of, like, not wanting to deal with things like codependency. It also, I believe, delays people's recovery because if in your mind, if you've demonized or dehumanized this human being to be a psychopath or a sociopath, whatever, you're actually delaying your recovery because as soon as you realize he didn't want me, I wasn't right for him, it wasn't working out, that's the sooner you heal. But if you spend years, you know, calling him these names and then looking for a confirmation bias on it, ultimately you'll not move on. Now, this is a very strong subject to me because I mean, most of the people who contact me about problems with female psychopaths are women, and the problem is usually women in the workplace. So you told me that you had issues with this. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. I would absolutely agree with that. In the workplace, female psychopaths absolutely target other females because they'll get away with it. Because, you know, women don't target other women, right? Wrong. So that's one of the reasons why they do that. And also that their female psychopaths are far better at playing the victim of their victim. So they're very good at bending reality and getting their minions all on board with believing that anything that their victim or their target does to try to protect themselves or fight back or anything, they make it look like it's an attack on them. They're really good at that. So, and that's what happened to me. With anything I did to try to protect myself was made to look like I was the troublemaker, you know, and everybody bought into it within her circle. And the way that she set up her department was like, it was almost like kindergarten, where you were rewarded for, you know, tattletaling on whoever. If you heard something, and they could turn anything into a big deal, even if it wasn't. You know, I would, and every day it was an onslaught of
what is that expression?
Office.
Sorry, Kira, what does that expression mean?
I'm not sure. What was I saying?
Tattletaling.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that expression.
Where you, let's say, you just tell on your colleagues for just little things.
Squealing.
Like squealing. Yeah. So that's the kind of department that she set up where everyone would squeal on everybody, and that's what they were rewarded for. And so team building and teamwork is impossible in an environment like that where people are tattletaling on each other. And, you know, it's for stupid stuff that it's really inconsequential stuff, but it's made to be a big deal in this type of environment, chaotic
and
environment
also
that's run by a psychopath.
Psychopathic females.
Oh, yeah.
And these psychopathic females, they tend to encourage the most negative imagery of women among men. I've noticed that they'll create a situation. They'll find the worst aspects in a group of women, bring them out, and as a result, it brings down all women.
Oh, it's really a shame, and I think that television shows like all of these Real Housewife television shows and all these quote unquote reality shows. That's a total psyop to make all women look like shallow pieces of garbage. and it's that kind of stuff that comes out in the work environment. It's all this tattletaling and catty, oh, look at what she's wearing today, and oh, this and spreading false rumors, like she slept with him and he slept with her and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't even have to be true. Once it's put out there, it makes you look like a horrible person, whether it's true or not, and then you're left defending your humanity. So, which is what they do.
And then they'll play the victim.
Yes, because you'll file a complaint or you'll try to do something just to stem the tide of attacks, and then you're the troublemaker because you filed an EEO complaint against them. And then
I had an issue. I had an issue with a female psychopath on a group that I used to be on, and at the time it takes a lot for me to think that someone is a psychopath. That's why I stay away from these groups as well, because everyone's a psychopath in these groups. But I don't. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for me to declare one person once. But this individual had a history of false accusations against men, spreading rumors against men, born with a silver spoon in its mouth, acting like it was owed something, on-demand victim complex, and was caught completely and 100% lying. Its favorite thing was to run away, saying it was triggering. Now, I did some investigation into this thing's past and discovered that she had a lifelong history of this. The man that she had described as a psychopath was actually a decent guy. And she seemed to target a specific kind of guy, a guy that was trying to do well, trying to make the world a better place, and then portraying her leader as a psychopath or a pervert. If you wanted to, when she was ever confronted, she ran away, what she'd call triggering, meaning that she ran away lying, especially if any proof was presented this thing. But this creature said one thing to me when I confronted her, and I confronted her with a basic lie, and it was classic gaslighting. She said to me, Thomas, what you think you know and what's real is not the same thing. And that was the moment I knew. That was the moment, even though I had multiple witnesses and all sorts of other proof, that was the moment I knew I was dealing with a 100% full-blown female psychopath. When faced with truth, turned around and told me what was being blatantly seen in front of my own eyes and what I witnessed and what the world witnessed, just because it didn't gel with her version or distorted version of psychopathic reality. Therefore, it wasn't what really happened. And I'm sure, I've heard stories like this of female psychopaths in the workplace doing things like, say someone borrowed a CD off them or something, they listen to the music, and then they come back and say, what happened to the CD? They say something like, I don't know, I put it back on your desk. No, you didn't. And then they make commotion, where's my CD, where's my CD? And then they'll do something like they'll find it in the bin, in the garbage bin, and says, how did it get into the garbage bin in front of the whole that's the gaslighting thing too. That's a very common one for female psychopaths. Have you experienced things like that?
Oh, definitely. I would get pulled into her office all the time and told that my peers had made complaints against me, like that I wasn't wearing the right things, like I wasn't obeying the dress code, or, one of her best one was, because they got increasingly more bizarre. The best one was that I was talking on the phone, and I was crying, and I was saying something about an air conditioner, and I was like, well, how, and it was all just to get me not to trust my peers, to make it seem like she was the only one I could trust, because all these people were complaining about me. But I interacted with these people on a daily basis, and they weren't assholes. I mean, they weren't people that would make petty complaints like that, So it was just all made up. And the moment I realized it was all made up, it was like, oh my God, this woman is sick. Just sick.
You
but it's all to throw you off balance.
You can't believe the level of the lie they tell, and the whole idea, like this creature I dealt with, the whole idea of telling the lie is to basically throw a bomb at you, so you have to defend your own humanity while this thing runs away, and it's like you try to deal with the flak. The best thing, as we all know now, is you keep your mouth shut, because eventually everyone else figures out this beast for what they are. But they want you to rapidly defend yourself. Listen, Kira, could you stay around after the next song, because I want to talk a bit more on this in relation to how they target men. In sharing with us some of her experiences with psychopathic females in the workplace, including gaslighting, creating little kind of gangs and minions, spreading lies and false rumor, generally the whole chaotic nature of it. But I don't know if Kira can interject this, but I'd like to talk about the relationships. Generally, female psychopaths, from the ones I can only say I've only ever known one in a relationship sense when I was very young. Actually, when I was in my first band, before that even. And looking back on it years later, I realized that's what the situation was. But the thing is to look out for is the relationships move incredibly fast. And a female psychopath will tend to jump from one relation to another. And I'm talking about, like, she'll get divorced, right? And then immediately get plans to get married in no time. Have you experienced that, Kira?
Oh,
yourself,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and my old boss, in fact, married one of the higher ups in the facility I work in order to get a higher position for herself. And once she got it, then she divorced him, and everybody was just totally blown away. They were like, I didn't even know there was any trouble. You know, it was just baffling. But she was done with him, so you know, he was gone.
It was just an object.
And now,
while she was dating him, was probably incredible. Oh, he's the greatest man in the world. Oh, he's wonderful. Blah 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 blah. The love bombing was probably flying, and then she just decides goodbye.
Yeah.
Like,
and he was
like a child
baffled.
with a tie on Christmas Day.
Yeah, it was one of those real fast-moving, boom, all of a sudden they were getting married, and then all of a sudden they were getting divorced once she got that job she was looking for. And now, ironically, he has her old job. He's actually in a lower position than her now. So it's
business.
It's exactly what they do. Just business. And they'll either go with the type that's going to actually get them somewhere in their career goals, or get them a place to live, or get them more money, or buy them things, or, you know, just using. But if once they've gotten to higher positions, then they'll find somebody that they can just abuse, just completely abuse. So the one she has now is just this sort of older redneck guy that wants to marry her, is completely infatuated, in love with her. And when he asked her to marry him, she literally screamed at him and told him to fuck off. So, but he still follows her around like a puppy dog. Yeah. She said, I told you I didn't want to get married. And she bragged about that. She said that, you know, that fool asked me to marry him.
Does this woman have, it's hard to tell sometimes, but does she have a high testosterone level, would you say?
Yes, and it's manifested.
Would she be very muscular?
Well, she has a very small upper body, very muscular upper body, and a bigger sort of bottom, like sort of pear-shaped. But where I really could tell that she had a testosterone issue was that she's in her 30s and has horrible acne problems, to the point where they scar her face. And so, you know, that's
very
indication. Yeah. So that's what really. I noticed that after reading your book and the 5 things that you can tell, and I was like, oh wow, you know, just wow. And it's really hard to find things about female psychopaths. It's almost impossible. I mean, I got sucked into the Jodi Arias trial just because there was a female psychopath that you could actually look at, and that reminded me of my boss, really. The way that she steers conversations into chaos, just her mannerisms and the total lack of remorse. And the way that, here's a woman that just completely slaughtered her boyfriend. She just, I mean, we're talking stabbed 30 times, almost decapitated and shot in the head, but yet she's able to get professionals to actually go on the witness stand and say that she's the victim, that he abused her. And so it's not enough. You know, it's not enough for her to actually kill him, but she has to keep murdering his character after he's dead and torturing the family. You know, that's how psychopaths are. They don't quit, even after you're gone. And they love people.
It goes on forever.
Yeah.
and they're always, like you said, they're always the victim. Like a female psychopath can spend her whole life running smear campaigns, attacking people, destroying reputations, and when somebody stands up with them, they're like, I'm just a little old lady. I need to be left alone.
Yep, exactly. And that's what makes women's shelters such dangerous places, because you get these professional victims that come in, and they've been diagnosed not as psychopaths, but of course as borderline personality, right? And so they come in and they can play. They play everybody who works there, and they make the shelter itself where women who have already, are almost, on their last leg of hope, and they play them too, and it's horrible. They love people who have chronic illnesses or autoimmune diseases, because they know that stress makes it worse. So they like to raise a person with a chronic illness or disease. They like to raise that stress level and see that person suffer. And they can't be blamed for it, because it's that person's disease. It's not the stress they're causing them with their traumatic personality or anything. Now, they love that. They love to murder by suicide.
That's why so many of them are involved in elderly care. I find that's the most common, a very common profession for a female psychopath. Like, they don't ever seem to have real jobs unless it's a government job. They're like middle-aged babysitters and things like that. Very strange. They don't seem to have, or even have a history of regular jobs. It's just either marry some guy quickly or find a place to live, or be involved in kind of home care for the elderly, or a babysitter when they're middle-aged. But they never have a real career path. And the ones one of the reasons there's so many female psychopaths are drawn to Nick just mentioned something about the Madonna song Borderline. I'm going to tell you something about that, Nick, in a few minutes. It'll blow your mind. But anyway, they target the elderly people because, well, you think about it. A, they can get stuff off them. They can rob them blind. They can get into their bank accounts. They might even get their home. There's all kinds that can change their will. But also, it's the image of the carer. And you'll have these older people who think, well, they'd be very wary. And this is the thing about, they'd be very wary of someone who was a man coming in as a carer. Unfortunately, because you could have the nicest guy in the world doing it. And also a minority, anyone from an ethnic group, an immigrant or something, they don't trust them. But they will trust one of their own kind of females. And this one as like their missing daughter. And these people will usually have their lives taken. Now, often directly, I mean, they will. I've heard cases of them poisoning old people and all these kinds of things. But one of the most insidious stories I ever heard was of someone wrote this when I first wrote Puzzling People. Someone wrote me a letter, and it was about that a female psychopath had moved in with her elderly grandfather or grandmother, I can't remember what it was, and would do things like say, I'm going out with my boyfriend, and then set her up with her dinner or whatever for the night, and she'll be back early in the morning. But the psychopath wouldn't go out to dinner. What they would do is they would slam the front door and then go down to the basement and start moving things and banging pipes and throwing things over, terrorizing the elderly person. Then at 2 o'clock in the morning, they go upstairs, open the door and slam it again and come in. And then the elderly person would say, oh my God, there was an intruder in the house. The psychopath would go looking all over the house, find nothing, and then would go up to the person and say, I think you're either losing your mind, or make some stories that I didn't want to tell you this, but the house is haunted by a ghost. Did you not know? Just to put them in a state of fear and dependency so the psychopath can manipulate them. Now, that thing, Nick, you just wrote that Nick, you just wrote that song Borderline by Madonna, right? Listen to the lyrics of that. Borderline, seems like I'm going to lose my mind, right? That song came out at the same time the American Psychiatric Association put borderline personality disorder in the DSM. And also, if you watch the video of that song that Madonna is in, she's behaving like a female psychopath. She's using and devaluing guys. And it's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, and they definitely will use their sexuality to manipulate. Yeah. Definitely. And then when a guy reacts to that and favorably, then they're a victim. But they've used that to attract the guy. Yeah, it's like, what? That's crazy. That not only do they become elderly care workers, but they become babysitters as well. And that's where you find out this guy that was perfectly normal, there's nothing wrong with the marriage, and all of a sudden he's going with his babysitter, and it's because, she found out whatever his weaknesses were and worked him. And then, and it's someone you'd never suspect. You're like, that guy wasn't an asshole, he's not, so... But they find out what the triggers are and the weaknesses. The guy might be going through his like midlife crisis or something, and use that to gain access to his life and his parasite onto his consciousness and everything. Yeah, and that my ex-boss was a babysitter.
Or the guy's a widow, or the guy's a widow,
right?
Or his wife the guy is a widow, or a wife is having cancer.
Right, exactly, and she's next in line. She'll put herself next in line. Yep.
And the thing is, all psychopaths, male and female, the thing that they do, there you go. And as the supportive one, I'll take care of your kids, that kind of thing.
Right. And the kids,
what they do
they
is
have that.
They put us out of kilter. This is how they function. You meet them and they put you out of kilter.
Yeah, it took a year to get back in balance for me. It did. It took a year for me to just sort of get back in balance. And I look back and I did a lot of things wrong, but I was under a lot of stress. This was a daily thing. And all I knew to use was the EEO system, which is a system that's designed to fail. Because if you file a complaint against a manager who has discriminated against you, you have to file it based on your protected class. So woman, Indian, whatever. You can't just be anybody who says this person did a horrible thing, prove they did a horrible thing, and then, move forward and get justice, because you have to prove that they did that horrible thing to you based on the fact that you're a woman, a black person, an Indian, or whatever your protected class is, disabled. You have to you don't not only have to prove that you were wronged, but that you were wronged because of who you are. And so that's where everybody gets held up. You can't prove that. It's not provable. And the agency will protect itself, because you have to sue the agency for having that monster in there, working for them. So, and the agency will protect itself. So it quite naturally is a system that's designed to fail. Yeah, the EEO laws don't protect anyone.
Because psychopaths set the system up.
Right, exactly. It's designed to fail because they wrote it up precisely. Yeah. So I think I'm going to, maybe just use my energy elsewhere instead of appealing and going through all that.